We are answering questions from Bucs fans and catching up with the latest rumors surrounding Rob Gronkowski and Leonard Fournette right now on Locked On Bucs. Let's go.
You are Locked On Buccaneers, your daily Tampa Bay Buccaneers podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What's up, and welcome to the Locked On Bucs podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. We are your daily podcast covering the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, free and available on all platforms, including YouTube. And we thank you for making us your first listen or review of the day. I am James Yarcho, deputy editor of SB Nation's BucsNation.com, joined not by Evan Klosky on this Wednesday episode, but by David Harrison, my good friend from Sports Illustrated's BucsGameDay.com. And of course, follow everything on Twitter at Locked On Bucs, at JArco_Bucs, and at DHarrison82.
Yeah, sorry to all the Kloskanites out there that you don't get Evan on this episode, but it's holiday weekends, plural. He's taking some well-deserved time off. So can't hate him for that. Just like we don't hate Ultimate Football GM, which is who is sponsoring this episode. That's not English, but it's okay. If you've ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your own football franchise, which pretty much every football fan has at some point in time, then this game is definitely for you. Download the game by visiting ultimate-gm.com or look it up in your app store of choice. Our listeners get a 100% free premium boost to their franchise when using the promo code Locked On. That's all caps, all one word in the game. James, so it's not WTSP Wednesday. Usually this is where Evan gives us all kinds of gems and insight into the most recent Buccaneers game. He's not here to do that. We've already talked about the Buccaneers game. We're getting ready to turn the page towards the next Buccaneers game, which is against Carolina Panthers. So I figured this would be a good time to catch up on some emails and some voicemails. We mentioned it before on some previous episodes, guys. We are having StreamYard does not like to let us stream your voicemails while we're doing this show, especially live. Recorded is hard enough, especially live. This is recorded, so we do have some voicemails that we're able to work in, but we need you guys to start gearing more towards the emails, Twitter DMs, or Facebook messages. We do have a Locked On Bucs Facebook page. It's not as active as we want it to be, but we're working on that, guys. But message that or DM us on Twitter or email us, all that information coming at the end. We do have an email, though, James.
Yeah,
from David in Ohio. Great name. Great state if you're James and if you like the Buckeyes like I do. Here's what David in Ohio says to us. Can the Bucs still make the playoffs if they lose to Carolina? With Atlanta being knocked out, wouldn't a win against them be irrelevant in the division standings? On another note, our defense is playing lights out without Vita and Jamel Dean, but our own line is lacking big time. I believe a lot of Brady's bad throws, won't say all of them, are because he doesn't have enough time. We need Jensen back ASAP. First of all, agree with all that stuff. This defense gets Vita Vea and Jamel Dean back healthy, and if they can stay healthy along the way, they're going to be a problem. The O-line absolutely lacking big time, and yes, not all of Brady's bad passes are solely on Brady. They're all kind of spread out amongst the group, to be quite honest with you. And yeah, Big Red, heal faster, buddy.
Yeah,
if you could. But James, Bucs playoff scenarios. We've got some of those, and we've got a lot of data to go through. So I'll let you kick it off with the easiest path to the playoffs.
All right, yeah. So obviously the easiest path is win and you're in, right? You beat the Carolina Panthers, you win the division. That's how it goes. So week 17, they're playing the Carolina Panthers, who are 6-9. And then week 18, they are at Atlanta, who is 5-10, starting University of Cincinnati legend Desmond Ridder at quarterback now. So Tampa Bay clinches the NFC South with a win over the Panthers. Boom, done. That's it. Moving on. Turn the page to the playoffs. So right now, they currently have a 70% chance of making the playoffs. Winning makes it 100%. A loss makes it 33%. And a tie makes it a 78% chance of getting into the playoffs. And if the Buccaneers lose, this is what starts to happen here. So you drop from the 4th seed to the 11th seed. You are now trailing the Green Bay Packers, the Detroit Lions, and Jared Goff, the Seattle Seahawks, and the Washington Commanders. So you would want Minnesota to beat Green Bay, the Bears to beat the Lions, the Jets to beat the Seahawks, and the Cleveland Browns to beat the Washington Commanders. So even if all of that happens, the Buccaneers then have a 46% chance of making the playoffs. They would climb all the way up from the 11th to the 8th seed. So yeah, it's a much more difficult path, but there is a path where the Buccaneers can make the playoffs as a wild card team.
Yeah. And if all of those teams, so if Green Bay, Detroit, Seattle, Washington win and the Buccaneers lose, then the Buccaneers drop to a 31% chance of making the playoffs. But like you said, James, if they win, then they're in, and we can just toss David's question right out the window.
Yeah.
And I like how I crumpled David's question on paper, even though it was an email. It's the magic of Locked On Bucs, ladies and gentlemen. But to answer your question, David, yes, the Buccaneers can make the playoffs if they lose Carolina. But not only that, they can actually win the division. So if Tampa Bay loses to Carolina, but Carolina loses to New Orleans in Week 18, and Tampa Bay beats Atlanta, then Tampa Bay wins the NFC South. So in reality, Tampa, you just need to win one of the last two, and you're in as long as Carolina helps you out with a loss in Week 18. But then you put it up to chance. And I mean, the New Orleans Saints, look, they're just petty enough that they might start Michael Thomas at quarterback and just, I don't know, like just punt the ball in every first down. Like, honestly, I could see the Saints doing something like that.
Can you imagine a situation where Carolina beats Tampa?
Yeah.
So they need New Orleans to win. And that's the moment that New Orleans is like, you know what? We're going to start Jameis Winston. And he has like a vintage bad Winston game. And once again, prevents the Buccaneers from getting into the playoffs.
And then Jameis eats a W on the way off the field anyway and just shows everybody that it was intentional. I mean, look, crazier things have happened. Listen, if Tampa Bay is the 8th seed entering next weekend, which James kind of already went through all the dynamics that have to do that, or have to make that happen, right? Tampa Bay then wins against Atlanta and Washington loses to Dallas. Then the Buccaneers are a wild card team. So that's the wild card scenario that you're looking at. And based on my best record estimations, they would play the Minnesota Vikings on the road in the wild card round. And look, Minnesota Vikings are beatable. So maybe you get to the divisional round where maybe you face the Dallas Cowboys like James has alluded to. Actually, that wouldn't happen because Dallas is going to be a wild card team. Anyway, worst case scenario, guys, and this is something that I've seen getting talked about a little bit on the Twitter sphere. Worst case scenario is that the Bucs coming out of this weekend are in line for the 10th overall pick in the NFL draft. Winning the NFC South puts you in 19th or lower, right? Or higher, however you want to describe it, 19, 20 or beyond, right? So it's interesting because we're talking about a 9-pick gap between where the Buccaneers or honestly the Carolina Panthers are going to be in the NFL draft. So the question as a fan, I mean, look, the team wants to win, period. Doesn't matter what the draft pick is, bottom line. But the question as a fan is, do you want 19, 20, all the way up to maybe 31 if you don't get 32? Or do you want 10 potentially, or 11? 11 is most likely, but 10 is possible. So, I mean, I don't know. If you got to choose between 10 and 31, like which direction do you want to go? Now, if you can get 32 and win the Lombardi, well, actually 31 would be the Lombardi because Miami's forfeiting a draft pick. Yeah, if you can get a Lombardi, you want a Lombardi, right? It doesn't matter what the draft pick is. But if you aren't going to get a Lombardi, do you want 10 or do you want 19? I think most Bucs fans would say 10. So yes, David, there is a chance the Buccaneers can win their division. There's a chance they can make the playoffs, even if they lose to the Carolina Panthers. But I think we can all agree it would just be better if the Buccaneers took care of business, beat the Carolina Panthers on Sunday, took all the complications out of it, and we can spend at least a week without having to worry too much about the future of the team. Of course, you know, you want them to do better than what we've seen. But yeah, the amount of help you need if you lose the Carolina Panthers is immense. Including having to rely on the New Orleans Saints in Week 18. You don't want to do that.
You know what I would absolutely love to see? I was talking to my dad about this yesterday. Very first offensive play by the Bucs. I want to see a play action deep shot to Mike Evans right out of the gate, just like the first time they played, except Mike Evans holds onto the ball for.
I want to see that play.
Yeah,
not just a deep shot.
Exact
play. Absolutely. And James, what else I want to see? I want to see my football team winning Super Bowls in Ultimate GM. This episode is brought to you about a game that I'm really geeked out about. And I mean, to the point to where my wife is like, you're still playing that football game. It's a lot of fun for guys like me. I love the roster building process, the scouting process. all that stuff. And so the mobile game Ultimate Football GM lets me do all those things. If you've ever dreamed of becoming an NFL GM and managing your franchise, your dream can come true with Ultimate GM, because you manage every aspect of your team going through the season, lead your team to glory. You're responsible for hiring the right coaches and coordinators, trading players, making draft picks, navigating your franchise through free agency and the draft, and all the ups and downs of a season. And yes, the draft picks are points weighted, just like real life. And you can do all that math and figure out how to get the best return for your trade offer there. All this is in a challenging, realistic game world. Ultimate Football GM is completely free and playable offline as well, so you can play anywhere you're going, as you want, when you want. I've already said how much I love it and I play it, and it's a lot of fun. It's very addicting, so make sure you have time when you download it and load it up. Locked On Bucs listeners, you get a 100% free boost to your franchise when you use a promo code Locked On. That's all caps, all one word, in the game store. Again, that's Locked On, all caps, all one word. So make sure you check it out today. Download the game. Just visit ultimate-gm.com or look it up in the App Store. It's ultimate-gm.com. Ultimate Football GM. Start your dynasty today. We're going to hear from more Bucs fans. We already heard from David out in Ohio. We're going to hear from more Bucs fans here in just a second. We want to appreciate all of you guys for participating. We also want to appreciate everybody out there making us your first listen or your first view every single day. Also, make sure you check out Locked On Sports today. The biggest stories around the sports world in 20 minutes or less, including J.J. Watt's pending retirement, plus instant reactions, game recaps, Locked On's take of the day. Locked On Sports today, available on YouTube or wherever you get your podcasts. James, we don't have JJ Watt. We don't have JJ Watt reaction because this isn't Locked On Cardinals or Locked On Texans or Locked On Steelers, because maybe they do the JJ reaction thing. But we do have Tyler from Boston.
Yeah, we do.
What's up, boys? Tyler from Boston. Hey, first of all, happy holidays, happy New Year to all the Bucs fans out there. So, walking it off in overtime against these eliminated, no pressure to win Cardinals, Christmas gift we all wanted, just like we all drew it up, right? You know, of course, there's things that I would have liked to see, none bigger probably than Evans getting more yards in this game at this point. Getting to his yardage is on par with winning the division for me. But, you know, at the end of the day, it's a Bucs win, and a dub is a dub. And I also want to appreciate the heck out of Russell Gage on that last drive, sacrificing the body. Now it's time to take care of business. Let's beat Carolina. Let's go, baby. Go Bucs.
All right, Tyler. James, you also love you some late game Russell Gage. You also love you some Mike Evans. So I'm going to let you take first response to Tyler there.
Yeah, so Evans, it's still very much within reach. It's very much within easy reach. We're not asking for, 130 yards a game over the next 2 weeks. It's simply he needs 41.5 yards per game on average to reach that 1,000 yards for the 9th straight year. We all kind of thought he was going to get real close to it last week against the Cardinals. But as we've seen throughout the year, Tom Brady tended to forget that Mike Evans existed through stretches, and then he was forcing him the ball and throwing interceptions to Marco Rubio Wilson, whatever his name is. And then late in the game, into overtime, Evans made some key catches, moved the sticks a couple times, got a few yards. But yeah, obviously this would extend his own NFL record for 9 straight seasons to reach 1,000 yards to begin a career. And he has had 83 or more receiving yards against the Carolina Panthers 7 times in 16 games. And against the Panthers earlier this year, he had 96 yards. And let's not forget about the 65-yard moonwalk in touchdown that was dropped. Still don't understand how that happened.
Yeah, that's crazy.
But if he and Brady can get on the same page for a week, which would be fantastic, it's quite easily attainable that he gets it this week with a game to spare. And, a lot of people will point to this record. Oh, well, they extended it. They extended the season to 17 games. Well, even within the 17 games, Mike Evans has been able to get that within 16 games played. Right. Of course, he was suspended for a game this year. So the most he can play is
15 games played if he does it this weekend.
Right. If he does it this weekend, it's 15 games played. And then last year he did it and missed a game. Was he suspended last year too? Was that what it was?
I feel like he gets suspended every time he plays Marshawn Lynch, so probably.
In Marshawn Lattimore?
Marshawn Lattimore, yeah. Marshawn Lynch. Catching strays, you ain't even here, and you can't get fined. Yeah, by the way, apologies to all of our Florida Gator fans who don't appreciate the Marco Rubio Wilson joke that James Yarcho made on this show. Marco Wilson.
That is a thing that just happened.
Doing good things. Also doing good things is Youssef in Minnesota. Let's check out what he's got to say.
Hey fellas, this is Youssef out here in Rochester, Minnesota. Sorry it's been a minute. Haven't had a lot of time to call in. I don't know what we're doing on offense though. I know you guys have probably talked about it ad nauseum this year, and why can't we just do the things that we are good at and stop overthinking things and trying to fix things that aren't broken? I feel like Byron Leftwich is overthinking his offense. The offense. Tom Brady does Tom Brady things, and we won the game. But next week, put all our chips in the middle here. This is for the division. I hope they figure it out. But I'm not getting my hopes high. As you know, not getting too high, but not too low. And as always, go Bucs.
Love to hear from Youssef. Haven't heard from him in quite a while. Real quick, before we answer Youssef's question, I had mentioned that Mike Evans needed 41.5 yard average over the next 2 games to reach that record. This season, as rough of a season as it has been, he has been under the 41.5 yards receiving mark only 3 times. So, and one of those was this past week against the Arizona Cardinals. That's
not so great. Yeah, no, good stuff there. So, Youssef, appreciate hearing from you. Know you've been busy. Know you've been moving.
Oh yeah.
You know, we do things for our family, and that's what we do because we're good people. So, shout out to you for that. I hope things are going well up there in the great cold Minnesota. And who knows, maybe the Buccaneers are going to come visit you soon, although I think everybody would rather they stay home for the first round of the playoffs. Why can't the Buccaneers just do what they're good at? That's a very good question, and I want to get into that part second. But the first part I want to talk about, James, because I've kind of mentioned this to you off air. I don't know that I've said it on air as much. Byron Leftwich is overthinking the offense, but Tom Brady's doing Tom Brady things. And I know that those two statements were not made connected to each other specifically, but this is kind of a thought process that's been going around, James. And I'm going to kind of talk about this very quickly. This is where I kind of take issue with what's going on this year and the perception of what's going on this year. Because last year and in 2020, the offense was all Tom Brady and BA, right? There was no Byron Leftwich. Byron Leftwich was just a puppet that was saying what he was told to say. But then Bruce Arians retires, things start going haywire, not going very well. And all of a sudden, it's Byron Leftwich that is the problem with the offense. And Tom Brady ceases to have any influence whatsoever or take any blame from some people for what is going on with the offense. Then the conversation comes out that Tom Brady is actually having side meetings with players before the game to make final tweaks to the game plan, which the coaching staff says, yes, we're aware of this. This is not new. This is exactly what's been going on since Tom got here. Make no mistake about it. Tom Brady is still involved in this offense. Tom Brady is still involved in the game plan. He's still involved in the game script, in the game flow. So I'm not saying that Byron is void of responsibility here, but what I am saying is that Tom Brady is not void of responsibility. So when we say that Byron Leftwich is overthinking his offense, if you think that there's overthinking going on, it's by Byron and Tom. If you think that there's a lack of trust in the offensive line, it's Byron and Tom. Like whatever problem there is with the offense from a schematic mental standpoint, it's Byron and Tom in Congress. I don't know if it's 50-50, 60-40, 70-30, but make no mistake about it. This is Byron and Brady's baby you're seeing on the field offensively. So yes, while Tom does some things at the end of games and all that stuff, that's brilliant. Don't forget that he has a role in this run heavy offense that is driving so many of you crazy, even though the Buccaneers are undefeated when they run the ball 30 or more times a game.
Are the Buccaneers playing the ultimate game of rope-a-dope where the offense is so, I guess for lack of a better term, the offense is so boring where it's constantly passes within 7 yards of the line of scrimmage, 6 wide receiver screens to Godwin a game. It's dump offs, it's swing passes, it's run the ball up the middle. And then all of a sudden they're going to get in the playoffs and they're just going to try to flip a switch and all of a sudden be a vertical passing attack like they were the last couple of years. I'm not saying that it would work or that is what's going to happen, but that would be the most wild shift of all time.
I don't think that's what's happening, though. I think this is the offense based on the personnel that they have. And I go back to Pittsburgh. I honestly think what you see is a quarterback and an offensive coordinator that don't have faith in their offensive line. And just like David said in his email, and plenty of people have said in comments and everything else, there's a reason to not be confident in this offensive line. Now, if Ryan Jensen comes back and Donovan Smith can figure out everything that's going on in his world and get back on track, and Tristan Wirfs can continue to get healthy, hopefully not having setbacks, then maybe we see a better offensive line, and that would then unlock the offense. But what I would hate for people to think is, well, now we entered the playoffs, Ryan Jensen comes back, and well, now Tom Brady took over and said, you know what, I'm not listening to Byron. Because that's not what like, again, this is a Tom and Byron product that you're seeing right now. And I'm not saying that Byron's the greatest offensive coordinator in the NFL, should be a head coach next year, blah, blah, blah. I just don't think it's fair that Byron is getting 100% of the blame when for the last 2 years, he got 0% of the credit for what was going on in that offense.
There are certainly some things that the Bucs offense is good at, but we're going to talk about those in just a moment. But first, this episode is brought to you by Audible. Audible is releasing a slate of new football podcasts that we are sure you are going to love. That's why you'll be able to find an episode from The League available as a bonus episode on Locked On NFL. Narrated by Super Bowl champion, legendary smack talker, and former Buccaneer Richard Sherman, and sports broadcaster and rising star Taylor Rooks. The League is an 8-part docuseries about the most bizarre, inspirational, and unlikely stories connected to America's favorite sport, pro football. You won't want to miss these untold stories spanning from the 1940s through the present. And our bonus episode is called The Way of the Cowboy. It is an incredible story of how the 1977 Dallas Cowboys brought in Bruce Lee's protege to teach their defense martial arts, ushering in a new approach to the way the league trained. Each story offers equal parts history, entertainment, and social commentary. So head over to Locked On NFL for a bonus episode of The League, or catch the full series wherever you get your podcasts, available now. Audible, get in the game. Wrapping things up here on the Locked On Bucs podcast, and going back to our good buddy Yusef's question, what are the Buccaneers, or he talked about why don't the Bucs do what they're good at? So what are they good at doing? And one of the things, obviously, is the no huddle, hurry up style of offense. That seems to be when the offense has the best chemistry, seems to be when Tom Brady looks the sharpest, seems to be when they push the ball down the field a little bit more with some success, far more than usually throughout the rest of the game. But that, and I don't know, David, maybe you have a different opinion. That is not something to me that is sustainable all game long. That is something that you need to mix it in to your standard game plan, where, maybe that opening scripted drive where they tend to come away with some points, you run that the way you normally do. Come out on the next drive, just run your normal offense. Then maybe third possession, fourth possession, you start maybe not necessarily no huddle, but a little bit more up tempo. You get late into the second quarter. Now let's go full no huddle. Let's hit them as hard and as fast as we can. Maybe you open the second half with the no huddle, then go back to your standard offense. You sprinkle it in, you mix it in, and you don't have to do an entire drive of the no huddle hurry up. But if you can kind of get some chunk plays because the defense is kind of reeling, they're not swapping in and out, it can certainly kind of jolt this offense a little bit. And then, of course, the play action game. We know how effective Tom Brady is in play action. The Buccaneers are averaging 7.6 play action snaps per game. That is 28th in the NFL when you have arguably the best play action quarterback on your team. That is nowhere close to enough. They have to incorporate more of that.
Yeah, and again, it's weird because, again, this is a Brady and Byron product, and for some reason, even though Brady's had so much success with the play action over the course of his career, there doesn't seem to be this kind of emphasis. And I also just wonder too if it's there could be such a lack of faith in this offensive line that, well, if I even take a beat to pretend I'm handing this ball off, I'm going to have a D end or an outside linebacker on my butt immediately. I don't know. Those guys aren't the only ones that can answer that question. And they're not going to do it while the season is going on. So the only thing about play action, you got to run to set up play action. And again, in the beginning of the game, you could probably get away with it. You know what I mean? Because the threat of Leonard Fournette, Rashad White is already there anyway. Like, people, even though The Bucs are not exactly leading the league in rushing. Trust me, what those two guys are capable of and what they can do in a game is known across the league, and leagues are not sleeping on either of those running backs right now. So you could get away with it in the beginning, but if you're just not running the ball, if you're 3 carries against the New Orleans Saints game plan, the defense is going to pick up on that, and they're not going to keep biting on play action. So you do have to run. And then the no huddle thing, like you mentioned, I mean, no huddle is great, but you go 3 and out in a no huddle, you're talking about burning 45 seconds at the most, and your defense is right back on the field. So you have to pick and choose. And I kind of look at basketball. I used to have a basketball coach that had this kind of theology that essentially, if we get a stop, or if you get a stop on a first possession, so that means no offensive rebounds when you're on defense, you push tempo, you push the ball. And if we're up, you go for 3. If we're down by 1 or less, you go for a 3 in transition. And that's a little bit risky, and I understand that, but that's kind of what no huddle is. It's a little bit risky. Well, I would like to see the Buccaneers kind of adopt that kind of a scenario. Look, if you get a 3 and out on defense, come out no huddle on them. Because you know what? Even if you 3 and out no huddle, your defense is still rested because they went 3 and out. Now, and also remember, no huddle doesn't have to be super, super, super fast, right? No huddle just means you're not huddling up. You're lining up and you're calling plays at the line. In order to do this successfully, you need a very cerebral quarterback. And as we know, Tom Brady has always made his money off his athleticism. Wrong. He's a super smart quarterback. So put Tom Brady at the line of scrimmage, keep the formation in line, use Keith as a tight end because you can move him as a fullback, move him as an inline tight end. He's caught the ball a little bit. He's very versatile that he's shown. Keep that defense on the field, tire them out a little bit, bash them and gash them with Fournette and with Rachaad White. And I think that it could work, but you have to pick and choose. Like you said, you can't do it for 60 minutes, but can you do it for 20? Sure. I think you can. If your defense gets a turnover, quick change defense on the opponent, come out and no huddle, try to be aggressive, try to punch them in the mouth, get a win against the Carolina Panthers. So that's kind of my basketball analogy coming back here to football. But James, so great questions from all of you guys. We appreciate that. Sparked a lot of good conversation. Hopefully not everybody is cussing me out in the comments for blaming Tom Brady a little bit for the offensive scheme that we've seen. But we've got some news on a former Buccaneer player and a current Buccaneer player that we want to hit on here before we leave. Former Buccaneer Rob Gronkowski on this very show basically said he's not coming back. He's not unretiring. Ian Rappaport of NFL Media basically confirmed that, but did say that Gronk is considering a potential return in 2023. So not coming back in 2022, it looks like still, but potentially come back in 2023. And also added the Buccaneers had reached out to Gronk as early as training camp to see if he considered coming back. I think we already kind of knew that, but what do you think about Gronk coming back in 2023? Most likely going to wherever Tom is. You think Tom is in Tampa, so that would mean Gronk back in 2023.
Well, I think the most logical spot for Tom is in Tampa, but I do have kind of a wild card team that I would throw out there when we get to that conversation that makes a ton of sense. But yeah, I could see Gronk, if Brady decides, you know what, this is not how I'm ending my career. This is not how I'm going out. I'm not in a situation where my arm is shot the way we saw Peyton Manning decline, the way we saw Drew Brees decline in their ability to actually push the ball down the field. Tom hasn't lost that. To me, it's been all up here. It's been all mental for him this year. So if he comes back in, like Evan Klosky has said, he's going to be all in, 100% focus. It's not I'm retired, I'm not retired. There's no off-field issues. He's not going through a divorce, none of that stuff. So it will be, this is it. This is my last ride. And you better believe that we're not going out the way I did last year. Gronk will come back and help his buddy out. I think it'd be a fun final ride for both of them, knowing that after that season, they're both done.
Yeah. I mean, it would be a lot of fun to see both those guys back, and especially seeing them back in Tampa. Unfortunately, we're going to see Brady and Gronk playing in either Las Vegas or San Francisco. Now on to the current Buccaneer, Leonard Fournette. In a tweet on Tuesday that has since been deleted, running back Leonard Fournette said, and I quote, thanks to Jesse Morse, MD, on Twitter, who screenshotted this gem before Lenny could delete it. Quote, I hate when people be on here just talking, saying I'm out of shape, etc. Do y'all understand? I'm playing with a Liz Frank in my foot every week, can barely push off my foot, but through the grace of God, I'm going to keep proving y'all wrong. Many dots, hashtag Bucs win. Shout out Gene Deckerhoff. Liz Frank. So Jesse Morse, the doctor who caught this screenshot and sent it out in his own retweet, says that these injuries are very painful, cause players to lack explosiveness, and he's likely wearing a carbon fiber insert in his shoe. So Leonard Fournette's cleat, probably more customized and stylish than your car. Let's just put it that way. So here's the thing. This isn't the first time the Buccaneers have apparently hidden an injury, right? Back after the 2020 NFL season, it was revealed that Tom Brady played with a torn MCL, right? Legendary status, GOAT status stuff, but the Bucs never reported that. The NFL said after that report came out that they need to reconsider how they punish teams that lie by hiding injuries. Now, I remember going back to that, James, we made the argument the Bucs may not have even known. Tom may have hidden it from literally everybody. So unless there's evidence that the Buccaneers knew about it, that's kind of a difficult thing to deal with. But when the NFL talks about how they penalize teams, here's an example. In 2019, the Detroit Lions hid an injury involving Matthew Stafford before they played an NFL game. The Lions were fined $75,000. Billion-dollar company fined $75,000. Head coach Matt Patricia was fined $25,000. GM Bob Quinn was fined $10,000. The player was not fined anything. So that's not much, right? I mean, you get more of a fine from that for pissing hot, for smoking weed. You know what I mean? Honestly, so it's basically nothing. But the NFL doesn't like that this type of thing happens. So what are your thoughts after Leonard Fournette essentially just outed either himself or the Buccaneers or both for hiding an injury from the rest of the league?
I'm not putting any blame on Fournette at all. If he's been dealing with this and he's been taking a lot of criticism from people like you and me, other media members, of why isn't he producing? He looks slow. He looks indecisive. Well, yeah, if he's playing with a Lisfranc injury, those things are going to happen. So this isn't on Lenny. And if all of us were made aware that he was dealing with this injury, then, maybe we probably wouldn't have gone so hard. Be like, you know what? It makes his game against the Cardinals that much more impressive. So whoever within the confines of one Buck, if that is indeed what happened, that decided not to divulge that information, that's on them. And that needs to be addressed immediately.
Yeah, I don't like it. First of all, it's cheating, and I understand, whatever. But you know what? If this were happening against the Buccaneers, people would throw an absolute fit. So first of all, it's cheating, but it also brings into question even more for me. And by the way, Leonard Fournette, stock up last week, got a game ball right. So let's just remember that not always are the Locked On Bucs guys criticizing Leonard Fournette. Although, if you got a Lisfranc, why are you doing all that dancing? Anyway, not only is it cheating, but it brings up the question even more to me, why Rachaad White was so limited on Sunday night. If Leonard Fournette's got a Lisfranc injury, why is Rachaad White getting very little burn? He played just 36% of the snaps, which is the lowest percentage of snaps he's seen since November 11th, Veterans Day. Remember how long ago Veterans Day? We've had like 5 holidays since Veterans Day. Was that Memorial Day? I can't remember. It's Veterans Day. Although it was also Rachaad White's second straight game with 29 snaps. So the numbers are going down. And yes, I'm a veteran. It shows you how much I care about getting my credit and all that. So I do appreciate the thanks. Don't get me wrong, but I'm just not focused on it. That's a bad look for me. Meanwhile, Leonard Fournette's snaps are going up in the last 3 weeks, 36, 43, 49, while he's got this Lisfranc injury. Is it possible, James Yarcho, the Buccaneers are hiding a Rachaad White injury?
I would say, of course, it's possible.
I mean, of course. This is twice you've been caught cheating, lying, or hiding. Again, we don't know that they knew about Tom, but I find it hard to believe you don't know your quarterback has torn MCL. Oh, goodness.
It's certainly possible, but I will say it seems highly unlikely because Rachaad White does not, I just mentioned we've criticized Leonard Fournette for looking slow, looking indecisive, not running hard at times, all those things. Rachaad White, when he had his opportunities, still looks like Rachaad White, right? He still has that explosiveness, still has the jukes, the cuts. So, I mean, if they're hiding a Rachaad White injury, my guess is it's not in the lower body. It might be in the upper body. But I don't know. It's
insanity. Regardless, if Leonard Fournette is dealing with a Lisfranc injury, he should not be going up in carries. He should be either plateauing or going down in carries is the point. A bold prediction on Wednesday, Leonard Fournette will be on the injury report. Leonard Fournette will tell reporters that He knew he had a Lindsay injury, didn't tell the team, and Todd Bowles will also say the team did not know about it. But now he's on the injury report, so it's all good, guys. Nothing to see here.
Yeah, we'll just keep it moving. With that, we are going to keep it moving right on out of here. We want to thank you guys for making Locked On Bucs your first listen or view of the day. And of course, for your second listen, check out the biggest stories in all sports with Locked On Sports Today. For those of you that checked out Tuesday's episode, you got a little free preview of what Locked On Sports Today is all about with the year in review show. So Locked On Sports Today available on this app, YouTube, wherever you get your podcast. We will be back for our regularly scheduled episodes moving forward this week. Coming up tomorrow, of course, David has the crossover, and then we'll round things out with our live prediction show on Friday. Until then, check out everything going on over at BucsGameDay.com. Check everything going on at BucsNation.com. And, of course, follow everything on Twitter at LockedOnBucs, at JYarcho_Bucs, and at DHarrison82. If you want to be part of the show like Yusef, David, and Tyler from Boston, go ahead and send us an email to LockedOnBucsPodcast@gmail.com. You can send us a message on our Facebook page, or the Twitter DMs at LockedOnBucs are open. Hope you all have an absolutely outstanding day. Stay safe, stay healthy, fire those cannons. We thank you so much for joining us right here at Locked On Bucs.